Dr. Velik stared at the data on her screen for the third time that morning. The numbers made no sense. She pressed her 4 long fingers against her temple and let out a soft clicking sound that meant frustration in her species. "This cannot be correct," she said to her research partner Torak. Torak floated over on his hover pad, his tentacles wrapped neatly beneath him. He was from the water world of Penthos and needed the pad to move around the research station. His large, dark eyes scanned the data. "The measurements are accurate," he said. "I checked them twice." "But look at these hormone levels," Velik said. "The human subject shows attachment responses to 17 different entities on the station. 17. That includes 5 different species, 2 maintenance robots, and 1 potted plant." Torek made a gurgling sound that was his version of a laugh. "You forgot to count yourself, Dr. Velix." Velix's blue skin turned slightly purple, which meant she was embarrassed. "I am a scientist. The human does not have an attachment to me." "He asked about your health every morning for the past 30 cycles. He brought you a blanket when the temperature systems failed. He gave you a name." "A nickname," Velix corrected. "He calls me Vel. It means nothing." "It means something to humans," Torek said. "That is exactly what we are trying to understand." The Galactic Science Council had sent Velix and her team to research Station Harmony to study the newest species to join galactic civilization. Humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They had spread quickly through nearby systems, making friends and allies everywhere they went. This surprised everyone. Most species took hundreds of years to integrate into galactic society. Humans did it in decades. They formed bonds with species that had been enemies for thousands of years. They adopted customs and traditions from dozens of worlds. They made themselves at home everywhere they went. The council wanted to know why. Velix had been studying humans for 2 years now. She had observed them, interviewed them, and run countless tests, but she still did not understand them. The human brain was not special. Their bodies were weak compared to most species. Their lifespan was short. Their senses were limited. Yet somehow, humans connected with everything around them in ways no other species could match. The door to the lab slid open, and the subject of her research walked in. "Morning, Vel. Morning, Torak," said human subject 7, whose actual name was James Chen. He was a young human male, 32 years old by Earth counting, with dark hair and a smile that seemed to be permanently attached to his face. "Good morning, James," Velix said. "You are early today." "Yeah, I wanted to check on Little Blue before the tests," James said. He walked past the scientists and went straight to a small tank in the corner of the lab. Inside the tank was a Penthos water slug, a simple creature with no intelligence to speak of. James had found it in the station's water filtration system 2 weeks ago. Instead of disposing of it as regulations required, he had begged Velix to let him keep it. "Hello, Little Blue," James said softly, tapping the glass. "Did you sleep well? I brought you some algae flakes, the good kind from the mess hall." Torek leaned toward Velix. "He talks to it like it can understand." "He knows it cannot," Velix whispered back. "I explained the creature's brain capacity to him." "Then why does he do it?" "That is what we are trying to discover." James spent 5 minutes with the water slug, talking to it and feeding it. Then he turned to the scientists with that same bright smile. "Okay, I am ready for today's tests. What are we doing?" Velix pulled up her schedule. "Today we will measure your social bonding responses. You will interact with subjects from different species while we monitor your brain activity and hormone levels." "Sounds fun," James said. "Who am I meeting?" The first subject is a Korvax soldier named Grath. The Korvax are known for their aggressive nature and dislike of physical contact. James nodded thoughtfully. "Grath, that is a strong name. What does he like?" "Like?" Velix was confused. "He is a soldier. He likes fighting, I suppose." "No, I mean what makes him happy. What are his hobbies? Does he have family?" Velix checked her files. These were not questions she had thought to ask. I do not have that information. Why do you need it? Well, if I am going to talk to someone, I want to know about them. It helps me connect. There it was again. That word, connect. Humans used it constantly. They wanted to connect with everyone and everything. Velix made a note on her pad. The testing room was round, with chairs designed for different body types arranged in a circle. Sensors covered every surface, ready to record the smallest change in the subject's bodies and minds. Grath the Korvax was already waiting. He was tall, covered in hard gray plates that served as natural armor. His 4 eyes watched James enter the room with clear suspicion. The Korvax had been at war with 3 different species in the past century. They trusted no one. Please sit down, Velix said through the intercom. The test will begin now. James walked toward Grath with his hand extended. Hi, I am James. It is nice to meet you. Grath stared at the hand like it was a weapon. What are you doing? It is a handshake, a human greeting. We touch hands briefly to show we mean no harm. But if you do not want to touch, that is okay too. I respect your boundaries. Grath's eyes narrowed. You respect my boundaries. Of course, everyone deserves to have their space respected. Velix watched the monitors. James's stress hormones were slightly elevated, which was normal when meeting someone new. But his brain showed activity in areas connected to curiosity and empathy. He was genuinely interested in this alien who looked like he could crush him with one hand. Why would a human respect a Korvax? Grath asked. Your species is weak. You have no armor, no claws, no poison. You should fear us. James sat down in the chair across from Grath. I do not think strength is about armor or claws. I met a grandmother on Earth Station who was 90 years old. She could barely walk, but she had survived a war, raised 6 children, and built a school in her village. She was the strongest person I ever knew. Grath was quiet for a moment. Your people measure strength differently. I guess we do. Strength can be about surviving, about loving people even when it is hard, about getting up when you fall down. The Korvax believe strength is about victory in battle. That is one kind of strength, James agreed. I bet you have won many battles. That must have been hard. Do you ever get tired? Velix leaned forward. This was not in the testing protocol. James was supposed to follow a script of neutral conversation topics. Instead, he was asking personal questions. She should stop him. But something interesting was happening. Grath's defensive posture was changing. His shoulders, usually raised and tense, were dropping slightly. His 4 eyes were no longer scanning for threats. They were focused on James with something that looked almost like curiosity. I have fought for 40 years, Grath said slowly. Yes, I am tired. James nodded. That is a long time. Do you ever miss home? Home? Grath seemed surprised by the question. I have not been home in 15 years. That must be lonely. I miss home a lot. I miss my mother's cooking. I miss my dog. His name was Biscuit because he loved biscuits more than anything. What is a dog? Grath asked. A dog is an earth animal. They are loyal and loving. They greet you like you are the best thing in the world every time you come home, even if you were only gone for 5 minutes. This animal loves you. Yes, and I love him. That is what makes it so hard to be away. Velix watched as something unexpected happened on her monitors. Grath's hormone levels were changing. His stress markers were going down. His brain activity showed decreased aggression and increased social engagement. The Korvax soldier was relaxing. In 2 years of studying him, Velix had never seen Grath relax. Tell me more about this dog, Grath said. And so James did. He talked about Biscuit for 20 minutes, showing pictures from his personal device, describing how the dog would sleep at his feet every night. Grath listened to every word, and somewhere in the middle of the conversation, he stopped looking like a soldier preparing for battle and started looking like someone who simply wanted to hear a story. When the session ended, Grath stood up and did something that shocked everyone in the observation room. He extended his hand toward James. "Thank you," Grath said, "for telling me about Biscuit." James shook his hand with a wide smile. "Thank you for listening. Maybe tomorrow you can tell me about your home." Grath nodded once, a gesture he had learned from humans. Then he left the room. Velix stared at her data. In 30 minutes, James had formed a stronger connection with a Korvax soldier than any diplomatic team had managed in 10 years of negotiations. She did not understand how. She did not understand why. But she was determined to find out. The next morning, Velix found James in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. He was not alone. Somehow, in the 3 hours since breakfast, he had gathered a small group around him. There was Grath the Korvax, now sitting quietly nearby. There was a young Penthos researcher named Lyra, who was supposed to be in the biology department. There was even one of the station's cleaning robots, which James had named Dusty and apparently had conversations with during his walks. "James," Velix said, "we have tests scheduled this morning." "Oh, right." James stood up and smiled at his companions. "I will see you all at lunch." They all agreed, even Dusty, who beeped twice in what Velix assumed was confirmation. As they walked to the lab, Velix asked the question that had been bothering her all night. "James, how do you do it?" "Do what?" "Form bonds so quickly. Grath has been on the station for 5 years. He has never had a friendly conversation with anyone. You talked to him for 30 minutes, and now he comes to look at stars with you." James thought about this as they walked. "I just listened to him. I asked about things that matter to him. Everyone wants to be seen, Vel. Everyone wants to know that someone cares. Even robots. Even robots. Dusty works hard keeping this station clean. No one ever thanks him, so I thank him. I tell him he is doing a good job. Maybe he does not understand the words, but I think it matters somehow." Velix made a mental note. Human bonding behavior extended even to non-sentient machines. This was remarkable and strange. "Today you will meet subjects from 3 more species," Velix said. "Please try to follow the conversation script this time." "I will try," James said, but his smile suggested he would not try very hard. The first subject of the day was a Zillion named Pax. Zillions were tall and thin, with skin that changed color based on their emotions. They were known for being extremely logical and showing little feeling. The Galactic Council often used them as judges because they were so fair and unemotional. Pax entered the testing room with skin that was a neutral gray. She sat down and waited, showing no expression. James sat across from her. "Hello, Pax, my name is James." "I know, I have read your file." Pax's voice was flat. "You are human subject 7, here for social bonding research. Your test scores are average. Your physical capabilities are below standard. You have no remarkable qualities that would explain your selection for this program." James laughed. "You are right, I am pretty normal, but I think that is why they picked me. They wanted to study a regular human, not a special one." Pax's skin flickered briefly to a light blue, then returned to gray. "You find humor in being ordinary." "I find humor in lots of things. Life is funnier when you let it be." "Humor is inefficient. It serves no practical purpose." "I do not agree," James said. "Humor helps us connect. When you laugh with someone, you share a moment together. It creates a bond." Bonds are also inefficient. They create bias and emotional attachment that interfere with rational decision-making. James leaned forward with interest. "Have you ever had a bond with someone, Pax?" The question seemed to surprise her. Her skin shifted through several colors before settling on gray again. "Zillions do not form bonds the way other species do. We value logic over emotion." "But that does not answer my question. Have you ever cared about someone, a friend, a family member?" Pax was silent for a long moment. Velix watched her brain activity on the monitors. There was unusual activity in areas that Zillions typically suppressed. I had a mentor, Pax finally said. When I was young, she taught me to value truth above all things. She died 40 years ago. I am sorry, James said. What was her name? Vera. Vera, that is a beautiful name. What was she like? And just like that, Pax began to talk. She spoke about Vera for nearly an hour, her skin shifting through colors that Velix had never seen on a Zillion before. Soft greens and warm yellows and deep purples, colors of memory and feeling. At the end of the session, Pax stood up and looked at James with an expression that was almost confused. I have never spoken about Vera to anyone, she said. I do not know why I told you. Sometimes we need to share our memories, James said. It keeps the people we loved alive in a way. Pax's skin turned a soft pink. Velix checked her reference guide and discovered that pink meant gratitude in Zillion color language. It was one of the rarest colors for their species. Thank you, James, Pax said. Then she left the room, walking a little slower than when she had arrived, as if she was carrying something precious and did not want to drop it. Velix turned to Torek, who had been watching from beside her. He did it again, she said. Yes, Torek agreed. The question is how. They ran more tests that day. James met a Vox, a species of large insect-like beings who communicated through chemical signals. He met a Trilix, a small furry creature with 3 hearts and a severe distrust of larger species. He even met a Shard, one of the crystal beings from the far edge of the galaxy who did not experience time the same way organic beings did. With each one, James found a way to connect. He asked questions. He listened. He remembered small details and brought them up later. He made jokes that sometimes worked and sometimes did not, but the attempt always seemed to matter. By the end of the day, Velix had enough data to fill 10 research papers, but she still did not have an answer to her main question. Why did humans bond with everything? She stayed late in the lab, reviewing the brain scans and hormone readings. Torek floated beside her, equally puzzled. Look at this, Velix said, pointing to a graph. When James forms a connection with someone, his brain releases oxytocin and dopamine. These are pleasure chemicals. He literally feels good when he bonds with others. Many species have similar responses, Torek said. It is not unique to humans. No, but look at the intensity, and look at how easy it is to trigger. Most species need extensive positive interaction before these responses occur. James shows them almost immediately, from the first conversation. So humans are designed to bond quickly. It seems so, but why? It does not make evolutionary sense. Bonding takes energy. It creates vulnerability. Most species evolve to be cautious about forming attachments. Torek was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "What if that is exactly why?" "What do you mean?" "What if humans evolve to bond quickly because they are weak? You said it yourself. They have no armor, no claws, no special abilities. A human alone is vulnerable, but a human with friends, with allies, with bonds, that human is protected." Velix considered this. You are suggesting that human bonding behavior is a survival strategy. I am suggesting that for humans, bonds are not a luxury. They are a necessity. A human without connections is a human in danger, so they evolved to make connections as quickly and as deeply as possible. It was an interesting theory, but Velix felt it was incomplete. There was something more to human bonding than simple survival. She had seen it in James's eyes when he talked about his dog. She had heard it in his voice when he comforted Grath. Humans did not just form bonds to survive. They formed bonds because they wanted to, because they needed to, because to a human, a life without connections was not worth living. Velix looked at the photo on her desk. It was a picture James had given her last month. It showed the two of them standing together on the observation deck, with stars behind them. James was smiling. Velix was attempting to smile, which was difficult for her species. "I think," Velix said slowly, "we need to dig deeper. I think this is just the beginning." 3 months passed. The research continued. Velix filled report after report with data, observations, and theories. She presented her findings to the Galactic Science Council, who demanded more information. She interviewed dozens of humans from all backgrounds. She studied human history, human art, human music. She learned about human wars and human peace. She learned about their religions and philosophies, their hopes and dreams. And through it all, James remained at the center of her research. He had become something unexpected, not just a subject, but a colleague, and though Velix found it hard to admit, a friend. "I have been thinking," James said one morning as they walked to the lab. He had gotten into the habit of meeting Velix at her quarters and walking with her. He said it helped him wake up. "About what?" Velix asked. "About why you are having trouble understanding humans." Velix's ears twitched with interest. "Please explain." "Well, you keep looking at human bonding as a science. You measure hormones and brain activity. You analyze our words and behavior, but that is like trying to understand a song by looking at the sound waves. Sound waves are the song. That is what sound is. No, the sound waves are how the song travels. The song itself is something more. It is the feeling it gives you, the memories it brings back, the way it makes you want to dance or cry or fall in love." Velix was quiet for a moment. "You are saying that bonding is more than the sum of its measurable parts." "Exactly. When I look at Grath, I do not see a collection of chemicals and brain signals. I see a person. I see someone who has been through a lot and carries his pain quietly. I see someone who is brave and strong but also lonely. And when I see that person, I want to know them. I want to help them. I want to be their friend." "But why?" Velix asked. "What do you gain from being friends with Grath? He cannot help you survive. He cannot give you resources or power. He is not even from your species." James stopped walking and turned to face her. His expression was serious. "Vel, friendship is not about what you gain. It is about what you give. When I make a friend, I am saying, I see you. You matter to me. You are not alone in this universe." That feeling of being seen and mattering is the most valuable thing anyone can give or receive. Velix felt something strange in her chest. Her species was not known for strong emotions, but in that moment, she felt something warm spread through her. "Is that what you are doing with me?" she asked quietly, "seeing me?" James smiled. "I have been seeing you since the day we met. You work too hard. You worry too much about your research. You pretend you do not care about people, but you do. You take care of your team. You stayed up all night when Torak was sick. You learned to cook human food because you knew I missed home. Those were just logical decisions to maintain team efficiency." "No, they were not. They were kindness. You are kind, Vel. You just do not know how to admit it." Velix did not know what to say. No one had ever described her that way before. They continued walking to the lab in silence, but it was a comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between friends. That afternoon, Velix made a decision that would change everything. "I want to try something new," she told her team. "Instead of just observing James, I want to observe humans in their natural environment." "You mean on a human ship?" Torak asked. "Yes, I want to see how they interact with each other. How they live, how they work, how they form bonds when they do not know they are being watched." It took 2 weeks to arrange the permissions. Velix would travel on the human starship Endeavor for 30 days. She would observe the crew and conduct her research without interfering in their daily lives. James was excited when he heard the news. "You will love it," he said. "Human ships are busy and noisy and wonderful, and the food is much better than station rations." "Will you be coming with me?" Velix asked. "I wish I could, but my research period here is not done. Besides, I think you need to do this alone. You need to see humans without me translating for you." Velix felt a small spike of anxiety at the thought of being without James. She had gotten used to him. He explained human behavior in ways that made sense. Without him, she would be lost in a sea of confusing emotions and strange customs. But he was right. If she was going to understand humans, she needed to understand them on their own terms. The day she left for the Endeavor, James met her at the docking port. He was carrying a small package. "Here," he said, handing it to her, "a going-away present." Velix opened the package. Inside was a small stuffed animal, a dog that looked like Biscuit. "So you do not get lonely," James said. "Whenever you miss your friends, you can hug him and remember that we are thinking about you." Velix held the stuffed dog carefully. It was soft and simple, a child's toy. But somehow it meant more to her than any scientific instrument she owned. "Thank you, James," she said. "Take care of yourself, Vel, and take lots of notes. I want to hear everything when you get back." Velix boarded the Endeavor with the stuffed dog in her bag, feeling nervous and excited and strangely hopeful. She did not know what she would find on the human ship, but she was ready to learn. The Endeavor was not like any vessel Velix had seen before. Galactic ships were efficient, clean, and organized. Every space had a purpose. Every system was optimized. Crew members followed strict protocols and maintained professional distance. The Endeavor was chaos. The corridors were decorated with photographs and artwork. Plants grew in containers mounted on the walls, real plants, not the artificial ones used on most ships. Crew members walked past each other with waves and smiles and shouted greetings. Music played from somewhere in the ship, a constant background sound that never seemed to stop. Captain Sarah Okonkwo met Velix at the airlock. She was a tall human woman with dark skin and gray hair that she wore in elaborate braids. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Velix," she said, extending her hand. "We are honored to have you." Velix remembered James teaching her about handshakes. She took the captain's hand and shook it carefully. "Thank you for having me," Velix said. "I will try not to interfere with your operations." "Oh, do not worry about that. We are happy to have guests. Come, let me show you around." The tour took 3 hours. Captain Okonkwo introduced Velix to everyone they passed. There was Dr. Chen, the ship's doctor, who had a collection of alien plants in the medical bay. There was Chief Engineer Martinez, who called the engine room his baby and talked about the ship's systems like they were living things. There was young Ensign Park, who was only 20 years old and had pictures of her family on every surface of her quarters. Everyone wanted to talk to Velix. They asked about her research, her home world, her journey to become a scientist. They offered her food, showed her their hobbies, invited her to join their activities. By the end of the tour, Velix was exhausted. Social interaction was tiring for her species, and she had experienced more of it in 3 hours than she usually did in a week. "You look overwhelmed," Captain Okonkwo said. "Let me take you to your quarters. You can rest and explore at your own pace tomorrow." "Thank you," Velix said gratefully. "Your crew is very welcoming." The captain smiled. "We try to be. Space is cold and dark and lonely. We make it warmer by being there for each other." Velix thought about that as she unpacked in her quarters. Being there for each other. Such a simple phrase, but it seemed to capture something essential about humans. Over the next few weeks, Velix observed the crew of the Endeavor carefully. She watched how they worked together, how they solved problems, how they spent their free time. She took notes on everything. And slowly, she began to understand. Humans bonded through small actions. A cup of coffee brought to someone working late. A kind word during a stressful moment. A shared joke that made everyone laugh. These tiny gestures built up over time, creating a web of connections that held the crew together. Humans also bonded through shared experiences. The crew talked constantly about things they had done together. "Remember when the engine failed and we had to push through that asteroid field?" Remember when we found that lost ship and rescued those colonists? Each memory strengthened their bonds. But most importantly, humans bonded through vulnerability. They shared their fears and hopes and dreams with each other. They admitted when they were scared or sad or angry. They asked for help when they needed it and offered help when they saw others struggling. This last part puzzled Velix the most. In her culture, showing weakness was dangerous. It invited attack, but humans seemed to believe the opposite, that showing weakness invited support. One night Velix found herself in the ship's common room, unable to sleep. Ensign Park was there, curled up on a couch and crying quietly. Velix's first instinct was to leave. She was not good at emotional situations, but then she thought about what James would do. "Ensign Park," Velix said carefully, "are you okay?" The young woman looked up, surprised. "Dr. Velix, I am sorry, I did not mean to disturb you." "You did not disturb me, I could not sleep. May I sit?" Park nodded, wiping her eyes. Velix sat down at a respectful distance. "I miss my family," Park said after a moment. "I have been away for 6 months. I missed my brother's wedding. I missed my grandmother's birthday. I know I chose this life, but sometimes it is hard." Velix did not know what to say. She remembered James, how he always seemed to find the right words, but she was not James. "I miss my home too," Velix said finally. "I have been away for 2 years. My home world has different colors than human space. The sky is green and the water is purple. Sometimes I dream about it and wake up disappointed." Park looked at her with new interest. "I did not know you felt that way. You always seem so composed." "My species does not show emotions the way humans do, but we feel them. We just keep them inside." "That sounds lonely," Park said. "It is," Velix admitted. And as she said it, she realized it was true. She had been lonely for a very long time. She had just been too proud to admit it. They sat together in silence for a while, two people from different worlds sharing their loneliness. And somehow, that sharing made them both feel less alone. "Thank you," Park said eventually, "for talking to me." "Thank you for letting me," Velix said. When she returned to her quarters that night, Velix hugged the stuffed dog James had given her. It was soft and silly and completely unscientific, but it made her feel better. She was starting to understand why humans bonded with everything. It was not a weakness, it was not a strategy, it was not even a choice. It was simply how humans survived the vastness and coldness of the universe. They reached out, again and again, to anything that might reach back. They turned strangers into friends and enemies into allies. They found family in the most unlikely places. And maybe, Velix thought, other species could learn to do the same. Velix returned to Research Station Harmony after 30 days on the Endeavor. She had filled dozens of notebooks with observations, thoughts, and questions. But more importantly, she had returned with a new understanding of herself. She was not the same scientist who had left. She had been changed by her time with humans. She had learned to share her feelings at least a little. She had made friends among the crew. She had let herself be vulnerable, and instead of being hurt, she had been supported. James was waiting at the docking port when she arrived. He was bouncing on his feet with excitement. "Vel, you are back." He wrapped her in a hug before she could react. Velix had never been hugged before. It was warm and strange and surprisingly pleasant. "James," she said, her voice slightly muffled against his shoulder, "this is unusual." "It is a hug. Humans do it when they have missed someone." "I know what a hug is. I just did not expect one." James released her and stepped back with a grin. "How was it? Tell me everything. Did you make friends? Did you try the food? Did the captain tell you her terrible jokes?" "Yes to all of those," Velix said. "And yes, the jokes were terrible." They walked together toward the lab and Velix told James about her experiences. He listened with intense interest, asking questions and making comments. It felt natural now, this back-and-forth conversation. It felt like friendship. When they reached the lab, Velix found a surprise waiting for her. The room was filled with beings from every species on the station. Grath was there, standing awkwardly but looking pleased. Pax was there, her skin a soft yellow. Torak floated nearby, his tentacles waving happily. Even Dusty the cleaning robot was there, beeping in the corner. "What is this?" Velix asked. "A welcome home party," James said. "We wanted you to know you were missed." Velix looked around the room at the assembled beings. They were all different shapes, different species, different ways of thinking and feeling, but they had all come together for her. For the first time in her life, Velix understood what it meant to have a community. "Thank you," she said, and her voice cracked slightly on the words. "This is unexpected and wonderful." The party went on for hours. Beings who had been strangers 2 years ago now laughed and talked together. Grath told stories about his home world. Pax shared memories of her mentor Vera. Torek performed a traditional penthos dance, floating gracefully on his hover pad. Even Velix shared a song from her home world, a simple melody that she had not sung since childhood. And at the center of it all was James, moving from group to group, making sure everyone felt included, weaving connections between beings who had never had reason to connect before. This, Velix realized, was what she had been studying all along, not brain chemicals or hormone levels or evolutionary strategies. She had been studying the human capacity for love. The next morning, Velix called a meeting of the research team. "I know why humans bond with everything," she announced. The room fell silent. This was what they had been working toward for years. "Tell us," Torek said. Velix stood up and walked to the center of the room. She had practiced this speech all night, but now that the moment had arrived, the prepared words seemed inadequate. "When I started this research, I approached human bonding as a scientific puzzle. I measured chemicals and brain activity. I analyzed behavior and made predictions. I thought if I could understand the mechanism, I would understand the phenomenon." She paused and looked around the room. "I was wrong. Human bonding is not a mechanism. It is not a strategy or a survival technique or an evolutionary adaptation. Those are parts of it, yes, but they are not the whole." "Then what is it?" Grath asked. "It is a choice," Velix said. "Every day, every moment, humans choose to reach out to the beings around them. They choose to see others as potential friends rather than potential threats. They choose to be vulnerable, to share their fears and hopes and dreams. They choose to love, even when loving is dangerous, even when it might lead to loss and pain." She walked over to James, who was sitting quietly in the corner. "James once told me that friendship is not about what you gain but what you give. I did not understand that at the time. In my culture, every relationship is a transaction. You give something and expect something in return. But humans do not think that way. They give freely without expectation. They love not because they have to, but because they want to." "That seems inefficient," Pax said, though her skin was a thoughtful purple. "It is inefficient," Velix agreed. "It is also messy and complicated and often painful. Humans get hurt by their bonds. They grieve when their friends die. They suffer when their relationships end. They carry the weight of everyone they have ever loved." "Then why do they do it?" Pax asked. Velix smiled, a real smile, not the awkward attempt she used to make. "Because the alternative is worse. The alternative is isolation, loneliness, a life without meaning or connection. Humans would rather risk pain than live that way. They would rather have loved and lost than never loved at all." She turned to address the whole room. "We have been trying to understand human bonding as if it were a foreign concept, but I do not think it is. I think every species has the capacity to bond the way humans do. We have just forgotten how. We have built walls to protect ourselves, and those walls keep out pain but also joy. Humans never built those walls. They chose to stay open to the universe, no matter how much it hurt. And that is what we should learn from them," she continued. Not their technology or their tactics or their strategies. We should learn their openness, their courage, their willingness to love. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Grath stood up. When I first met the human, he said, I thought he was weak. He had no armor, no weapons, no way to defend himself. But now I think he is the strongest being I have ever known. He opened his heart to me, a Korvax soldier, an enemy of his allies. He looked at me and saw a person. No one had done that in 40 years. Grath turned to James. You taught me that strength is not about armor. It is about the courage to be seen. I am grateful for that lesson, James. You are my friend. Pax stood up next. I have spent my life avoiding emotions. I thought they were weaknesses to be overcome. But the human helped me remember my mentor, Vera. He helped me feel the love I had suppressed for so long. It hurt, but it also healed something that had been broken inside me. One by one, the beings in the room shared their stories. How James had touched their lives, how he had helped them connect with each other, how he had shown them a different way to exist in the universe. And through it all, James sat quietly with tears running down his face. Vel, he said when everyone had finished, you did not just study us, you became one of us. You opened your heart and let us in. That is what it means to be human, not the species, but the spirit. And now you have that spirit too. Velix felt warmth in her chest, spreading through her whole body. She understood now that she had not just been researching humans, she had been transformed by them. My report to the Galactic Science Council will be different than they expect, she said. I will not give them a formula for understanding human bonding. I will tell them the truth, that human bonding cannot be understood from the outside. It can only be experienced, and to experience it, we must be willing to change. The meeting ended, but no one left. They stayed together, talking and laughing and sharing stories. A Korvax soldier, a Zillion judge, a Penthos researcher, a human from Earth, and a blue-skinned scientist from a world with green skis. All of them different, all of them connected. This was the answer, Velix realized. Not in the data or the analysis or the reports. The answer was in this room, in the bonds between beings who had chosen to open their hearts to each other. Humans had taught the galaxy how to love. And the galaxy would never be the same. 1 year later, Velix stood before the Galactic Science Council to deliver her final report. The chamber was vast, filled with representatives from 1,000 worlds. They had all come to hear the answer to the question that had puzzled scientists for decades. Why did humans bond with everything? Velix took a deep breath and began. Distinguished members of the council, I have spent 3 years studying human bonding behavior. I have collected data from thousands of interactions. I have analyzed brain patterns and hormone levels. I have interviewed hundreds of humans and observed them in their natural environments. She paused and looked around the room. And I have concluded that we have been asking the wrong question. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The question is not why humans bond with everything. The question is why we do not. Why have we built walls around our hearts? Why have we decided that connection is dangerous and isolation is safe? Why have we chosen to be alone in a universe that offers so much companionship? A tall, imposing figure rose from the council seats. It was High Counselor Vex, a member of the ancient Praxian species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Dr. Velix, she said, her voice cold, we asked for scientific analysis, not philosophy. What are the mechanisms of human bonding? How can we replicate them? How can we use them? That is exactly my point, Velix said. You want to use human bonding as a tool, but bonding is not a tool. It is a way of being. You cannot replicate it by studying mechanisms. You can only learn it by doing it. That is not science, Vex said dismissively. No, Velix agreed. It is better than science, it is wisdom. She pressed a button, and images appeared on the screens around the chamber. Images of Research Station Harmony. Images of beings from different species working together, laughing together, living together. Images of friendships that had seemed impossible 3 years ago. Before the human subject arrived at our station, we had a cooperation rating of 32%. That means less than a third of our researchers worked well with those from other species. Conflicts were common. Isolation was the norm. She changed the image. This is our station today. Our cooperation rating is 91%. Conflicts have decreased by 80%. Productivity has increased by 200%. And most importantly, our researchers report being happier and more fulfilled than ever before. What changed? Someone asked from the audience. One human, Velix said. One human who came to our station and started making friends. He did not try to change our policies or our procedures. He just talked to people. He listened to them. He showed them that they could connect with each other if they chose to. She turned off the images. Honored Council, you asked me to discover why humans bond with everything. Here is my answer. Humans bond because they have decided that connection is more important than protection. They have accepted the risks of love because they believe the rewards are worth it, and they have been right. She walked to the center of the chamber floor. Every species in this room has the capacity for deep bonding. We have simply been afraid to use it. We have built empires and technologies and great civilizations, but we have neglected the most important thing, each other. Humans have reminded us what we have forgotten. What are you suggesting? Vex asked. That we abandon our traditions, that we simply start hugging everyone we meet. I am suggesting that we learn from humans, not by copying them but by finding our own ways to connect. Every species bonds differently. Korvax bond through shared struggle. Zillions bond through intellectual respect. Penthos bond through mutual care. We do not need to become human. We need to become more fully ourselves, the parts of ourselves that reach out to others. The chamber was silent. Then, from the back of the room, someone started clapping. Velix looked and saw James standing there, applauding with that familiar smile on his face. Beside him were Grath, Pax, Torak, and dozens of others from the station. They had all come to support her. More beings joined the applause. Then more. Within moments, the entire chamber was filled with the sound of approval from 1,000 different species, each expressing it in their own way. Vex raised her hand for silence. Dr. Velix, she said, your findings are unconventional, but I cannot deny the evidence you have presented. Your station has achieved results that our best diplomats could not manage in centuries. She looked at the assembled representatives, then back at Velix. The Council will study your recommendations. In the meantime, we are expanding the Human Integration Program. More humans will be placed on stations throughout the galaxy, and your station will serve as a model for cross-species cooperation. Velix bowed. Thank you, High Counselor. One more thing, Vex said. We understand that you have decided not to return to your home world. May I ask why? Velix smiled. Because I have found a new home. A home is not a place, Counselor. It is the people you love, and my people are scattered across the galaxy now. On stations and ships and worlds I never imagined I would visit. Wherever they are, that is my home. The session ended, and Velix walked out of the chamber to find her friends waiting. James hugged her immediately. Grath placed a heavy hand on her shoulder in the Korvax gesture of respect. Pax's skin turned a warm, happy gold. Torek wrapped a tentacle around her arm. You did it, James said. You changed everything. No, Velix said. You did it. I just explained what you had already shown us. They walked together out of the council building and into the streets of the galactic capital. Beings of every shape and size moved around them, going about their lives. But something was different. Here and there, Velix noticed small changes. A Korvax helping a Zillion with heavy packages. A group of young beings from 5 different species laughing together at a cafe. A Praxian elder showing kindness to a lost child. The galaxy was changing. Slowly, one connection at a time, but changing nonetheless. "What do we do now?" Grath asked. James grinned. "What we always do. We make friends, we tell stories, we help people remember that they are not alone." "That is not a plan," Pax pointed out. "It is not even a strategy." "No," James agreed. "It is better, it is a way of life." They continued walking, the unlikely group of friends from different worlds. Behind them, the great council chamber stood as a symbol of galactic power and ancient traditions. Ahead of them, the city stretched out with all its possibilities. Velix did not know what the future would hold. She did not know if her research would truly change the galaxy or if things would return to the way they had always been. But she knew one thing for certain: she would never be alone again. She had family now, not the family she was born into, but the family she had chosen, the family that had chosen her. And that, she thought, was the most human thing of all. Years later, historians would write about the Great Bonding, the period when galactic civilization transformed from a collection of isolated species into a true community. They would debate the causes and analyze the data and argue about which factors were most important. But those who lived through it knew the truth. It started with one human who believed that everyone deserved to be seen. It spread through small acts of kindness and shared moments of vulnerability. It grew through friendships that crossed every boundary of species and culture and history. It was not a scientific discovery. It was not a political movement. It was not a revolution in the traditional sense. It was simply love. And in the end, that was enough to change everything. On Research Station Harmony, James still walked the corridors every morning, greeting everyone he met. Dusty, the cleaning robot, was still his friend. Little Blue, the water slug, still lived in the corner of the lab, fat and happy on algae flakes. And Dr. Velix still had a stuffed dog on her desk, a reminder of the human who had taught her what it meant to bond. The universe was vast and cold and often lonely, but wherever there were humans and those who had learned from humans, there was warmth, there was connection, there was hope. And that was humanity's greatest gift to the stars.